Hello, everyone. Today, I want to talk to you about the fear of disappointing other people and how we can overcome this. Because as people pleasers, this is something that can really run our lives because we are in the business of trying to get the love, approval, and acceptance from other people. But when we have to say no to somebody and not do the thing that they want us to do, then we have to deal with the looks of disappointment, or perhaps their manipulation strategies where they'll start yelling at us or trying to convince us as to why we should do this thing or how bad we are because we're not doing this thing. Or maybe they will punish us in some way, like they won't speak to us for the next 3 hours, or they'll walk around the house mopey and acting like, you did something so dastardly to them. And many times we don't want to deal with those things because number one, we're in the market to get love, approval, and acceptance and to be liked. And the second thing is that that's really hard for a people-pleasing empath type person that's really sensitive to other people's needs and wants to feel. We don't like to make other people feel bad. We're in the business of making people feel good. Or do you lie to the person and you say, oh, sure, sure, yes, 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 but you really have no intention of doing that thing. And oftentimes when the thing comes and goes, you don't do that thing. And then your person is upset because you said you were going to do that thing. And now you have lied about it, or you don't follow through and they get to the point where they can't trust you. Well, all these things are very, very common for people pleasers, and they're not something to beat yourself up about. Like I always say, this is a shame-free zone. Shame doesn't do us any good to beat ourselves up and to think that we suck because we are identifying an aspect of our personality that's going to help us heal. In fact, anytime that we take ownership and start to realize something about ourselves by having really awesome self-awareness, we're actually up-leveling our life. Even though in the moment it might feel like, oh, there's something wrong with me, your self-awareness is key to healing your self-worth and to reclaiming your personal power. Now, the problem is when we acquiesce to their requests and we say yes, 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 and we give in all the time, what we're doing is we're self-abandoning. What we're also saying to ourselves is that that person is more important than we are. And this is very harmful to us. On the flip side of that, if we lie to that person with no intention of following through on what it is that they're requesting of us, then we're actually hurting that other person. So by not being authentic with our yeses and nos, we're actually going to hurt that person or we're going to hurt ourselves. And both of those are not healthy and they're not going to serve us in the long term. I was the person that would say yes to a lot of things. I practically said yes to everything. And I remember back in my 20s when I started to try to say no to things, then I would get guilt trips by people. Like the people would kind of like, be all sad and bummed out. And I remember being like, gosh, why don't they just respect what I have to say? Because these are all people that I do a lot of things for and with. So it's not like I'm not paying attention to them or care about what they have going on. But the thing is that oftentimes people want us to do what they want us to do when they want us to do it. And part of reclaiming our personal power is being very, very mindful and intentional about what works for right now, what doesn't work for right now, what may work in the future. So, one of the first things that we can do when someone makes a request of us is to pause. I call this practicing the pause. Back in my hardcore people pleasing years, I was just, yes, yes, yes. Oh, sure. Yeah. Sounds great. Awesome. Oh, I'd be happy to do that thing. That was my go to back in the day. And over time, I realized that I had to stop when a request was made of me and say, let me think about this, or let me consult my calendar, or let me see if this works for me. I created space between their request and my response. And this was not only true with my family members and my children, it was also true with my friends and with my bosses or coworkers or anyone else. It's so important that we slow down and we get really intentional about what we want to do. In doing this, we are giving ourselves self-love. We are honoring our sacred self. We are respecting our sacred self. And we're not coming out with an automatic yes, saying, oh, sure, yeah, with no intention of doing it. We are actually being very mindful. Now, this is kind of scary at first for people. And this is why I'm making this video, because I want you guys to know that everything that I did that was hard, that felt like, oh my gosh, I'm breaking through a pattern and this is so uncomfortable. When I realized that there was a bigger truth involved with this, when I could actually help the entire unit and the greater good for all of us by being honest and truthful with my words and with my actions, that made the biggest difference for me. because I wanted to love people in an appropriate way. And I wanted to love myself in an appropriate way. If I was doing those things, I knew that I was hurting somebody. And I am someone who doesn't like to hurt anybody. So I was like, okay, it's not okay for me to hurt them, but it's equally not okay for me to hurt me. So I started to get super intentional with my yeses and my nos. In fact, y'all, if you're interested, I have a new guide that's called 25 Ways to Say No with Confidence. I'll put that right up here. You can click on that. And what I've written out is 25 pre-scripted ways to say no in a way that you feel empowered, that's not going to hurt the other person, that's going to be rooted in love of self. And when we can say no from that place, we must know this, that anything that is rooted in love is always for the highest good of all concerned. Anytime we are doing something to get a result, that is the design of the ego, and that is never for the highest good of all concerned. So if you're saying yes to something you really don't want to do and you go do that thing, you're hurting yourself, and that is not rooted in love. If you're lying to the person and you're saying, oh, sure, 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 I'll do that thing, but then you don't follow through, then you are hurting that person, and it is not rooted in love. Also, even small lies are going to hurt trust. And healthy relationships are built on the foundation of trust. So even though you think I've got this great relationship with this person, or it's my mom, or it's my husband, or if it's my child, I can say yes and not follow through, you're going to hurt that relationship, no matter how great that relationship is. There are much better ways to handle this that can preserve your sacred self and can preserve the sanctity of the relationship with your person. Saying no to others is healthy, it's acceptable, especially when it's rooted in love of self or love of the other person. You have the right to go within and to decide what works for you, when it works for you, or even if it works for you at all. I hope you guys got a lot from this episode today. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment below because I love to read your comments, and share with someone that you love. Maybe sit down with a family member and say, this is what I'm going to start working on because I really need to take care of me and I really honor and respect you.